Okay, so on that positive note, let's start. Hi everyone, my name is Yurii Paniv, and together with Dmytro Chaplinsky, we run an experiment how much we can automate Ukrainian NLP research and development. Obviously, the most boring part, so more interesting ones would be left for us humans to solve and for agents to deal with all of the data cleaning and other boring stuff. The clicker doesn't work. Thank you. So for the background, last year, while we were working on benchmarks for measuring LLM performance, it was a lot of catch-up work. So basically, as you can see, I don't know, okay, laser doesn't work here. If you can see, for example, all of the axis of measuring the quality of the model, basically you are repeating the same work that English researcher did, but you are using just Ukrainian resources. So there is a point in that you are not really doing scientific quality, but it's still an important work. If you can see, for example, different axes of measuring how good LLMs are for processing of Ukrainian language, you're basically repeating all of the previous work that was done for English language and other languages. So there are 7,000 languages in the world. So let's imagine for every language we are submitting the paper. So that would mean like, very large matrix of how we measure performance across the different languages and cultures. So the idea was to automate that stuff. Basically, we know the goal, what we should do. There is like no exploration so much, but more like a data engineer kind of work. So that was kind of a background for why we started the project at all. And together with Danilo Vorval, we were drinking the tea, and he demonstrated how he automated some processes at his company using agents and paperclip specifically. I was very impressed with the demo overall, and like immediately that evening after, I went home and launched paperclip to see how we can automate usual NLP stuff that is much too labor consuming, because it's not a surprise for anyone that for most NLP researchers, Ukrainian NLP is kind of a side quest. Nearly no one works full-time on Ukrainian NLP, unfortunately. And the idea was to use the paperclip to actually automate the stuff, and we can move on to more interesting problems. So first of all, when we set up the experiment, what is the goal? What we are ultimately trying to achieve? Our goal that we discussed with Dmytro was to close the gap between English and Ukrainian NLP automatically, or at least minimize the supervision at all. So only at key points of the development pipeline, the human supervision would be required. And in this way, it's kind of like helicopter parenting. Humans are only involved at, for example, producing reference labels or selecting the data sources and overall supervision of the project. At least it was the vision that we tried to realize with this project. Key other goals with more breakdown, close to zero manual involvement, avoid tasks like gathering and cleaning data, and supervision or human annotation are only acceptable at key points. So who isn't familiar with paperclip? Paperclip is an agent orchestrator. They treat it like a company of agents. So basically you have a lot of prompts for different models. So models act in their responsible role. For example, as a CEO or a CTO or a founding engineer, You define the goal overall for the project, then you spin up the first agent, and that agent produces like other agents that help to achieve the goal. And the vision is it's almost like magic. It working completely by itself and achieves the goal iteratively. It was before when we had like the goal feature in both Codex and Code Code. They were kind of the first in this case, and added a lot of features to make the thing overall easier. So in terms of the features, the most maybe important one is the ticket control. Basically, it's a big GitHub issue board where agents produce the issues or complete the tasks, and they log everything there. Like you don't have a usual chat input. For example, you leave feature requests as the tickets on a board. Then the agent picks up the appropriate ticket and tries to complete that. It has a lot of other features, like you can use any agent basically, checking the goal repeatedly, like heartbeats to check if agent hasn't stopped executing due to different reasons and can kind of continue working until it's done. And other ones are more like, nice to have, like org chart. It's just a combination how prompts are related to each other. So it's kind of the concept of this, but it's not really relevant for the success of achieving the goal. And the app looks like this. So you have the dashboard, you have different projects which you manage, you have the issue board, goals that you would want to achieve, different agents that you use, and you can apply different settings, combine different cloud SDKs in local agents, and you have some budgeting analytics, how much tokens does a particular agent use and overall for all of the project, and the recent issues that agents has updated, for example, like completed the features or some features require human input, they ping you and you get a notification at a messenger UI. So it's kind of like hands-off approach, at least what they're trying to sell you. So to sum up overall the pipeline, define roles. The first role, the most important one, who is a like project manager, if you can say so, give a task overall the goal to achieve. It makes a fire, just creates a prompt for other agents and then uses those agents for specific subtasks, schedules agents for different work, and then obviously agents starts working. Overall, we were discussing what kind of problem we would like to solve. There are many unsolved problems in Ukrainian NLP, and the one that bothered me for a while we were developing LAPA is summarization, because there were nearly none data sets available for abstractive summarization. Basically, most of the people here in this room have used the summarization for their tasks. For example, having a very large body of text and extract the key points from there. So we decided to ambitiously tackle actually that task and see what would happen. For those unfamiliar, the difference between extractive summarization and abstractive. Extractive selects the text that is already presented in source text. So we kind of selecting the most important sentences to capture the overall meaning of the text. And abstractive summarization means we are paraphrasing and producing completely different body of text. This way, we have a summary in the way that we desire our text to be presented. So let's get started. We create the first task, summarization one. There is a role defined for the principal investigator. It's kind of like a leader of the project, if you can say so. Principal investigator sets the direction for research. It should create a roadmap using SMART criteria, write a hiring plan, hire a founding engineer, very cringe terminology, sorry, but that's the way game works. Break the roadmap into concrete tasks and start delegating work. So in terms of the mission, the initial goals that we set for the whole process, like we had very small, slight hope that it will work if we just give the goal of build multi-domain Ukrainian summarization datasets, benchmarks, and model that can be evaluated reproducibly and improved in short research iterations. So that was the overall goal for this project, to start developing. And we gave that mission, it started producing the roadmap, started to create kind of like in a smart way, which we defined previously. So you can see that it uses all the right words for the planning, define target domains, define task variants, free schema. So we can have a set definition, provide the written spec, provide the scope, and establish the minimum structure required for all of the data collection and modeling and evaluation work. And if we are scrolling down a little bit more and more, we can see that it goes all the way through creating a diverse data set and refining data quality and benchmarking. So like you have no suspicion there that anything can go wrong. It even created all of the roles required for such a project. So we have a principal investigator, like we have data engineer, tech writer for writing documentation, even a stakeholder reviewers that should be critical overall for the work if something goes wrong, and founding engineers that handles all of the code and infrastructure. But really, there is no such difference between data engineer and founding engineer. Like remember, it's all just the same model with different prompts, acting in different ways. So there are no people involved, at least on the screen. So it started developing, like dashboard got very busy. We can see a lot of the background jobs running, a couple of agents running in parallel, creating all of the necessary like call tools and everything needed to achieve the goal. We, as for infrastructure overall setup, we've used a paperclip plus codex, specifically GPT 5.3, which was the model available at the time, roles defined at the previous screen, and it was initially hosted on virtual private server with a very small spec, but with large storage space just to store all of the data to later process that. So the first iteration, we've used the prompt that I've mentioned previously, just asked to complete the task. But there were immediately problems, like GPT 5.3 started immediately requesting pull requests for every different lines. So it was just unmanageable overall. Even though it requested all the pull requests and stuff, it didn't provide any explanation what actually was happening and wanted to check constantly. So it didn't produce any kind of artifact, just a line in documentation, and congratulated us with a great result that we solved the great problem of Ukrainian summarization. And so we discarded that approach and moved to the second iteration. We've added base of work, basically a document which specifies how agents should work. And it addresses the following problems which we found at the first iteration. First of all is the development process, like what is actually managed, what is a good result that is measurable and fits our agenda. Have to commit and organize commits because it was just a spaghetti code and mess, and forces to document everything into knowledge base in docs folder. So we can actually track what's happening and what is the overall history of that project. And that document for ways of work looks like this. Basically, we've used a publicly available document how to organize coding in teams and use the document as a prompt for LLMs. And it contains like different feature types, like with what prefix we should use, we should contribute different types of code and contributions, rules for the commit messages, and what should be contained in that commit overall. Also, it implemented Git hooks, so it would check basically every time that it works at all, and it couldn't commit without all of the Git hooks completed. So we've provided kind of like an automated way to actually guardrail good description for all of the Git commits. And also added some rules for the docs folder, what to place there. First of all, treat it as a project knowledge base. So before like anything happens or any new requests, agent should go through the docs folder and see what was happening before to have the context relevant for the task. And it does this every time. All of the operating rules should be in top level docs, so they would be like the most accessible overall. All of the checks that something went wrong would go into audit folder, research notes if anything novel would happen, but we had very good doubts about that, would be put into research folder, and it should prefer updating existing document over creating new duplicates. Specific word prefer works great if you don't want to if you don't want the model to blindly follow the instruction that it should update the existing document. Like it's very sensitive to that phrasing, and it actually produced a very different result overall in our development process. And the next one is what is a good task. So basically, we are playing as the managers here overall. Like we are defining the process for the development and explaining how to work. I decided to try the SMART framework, which everybody is familiar with, but I am confident that nobody uses in real life. And I decided to see if the agent would actually follow that process and will it be better overall. So I've added the specific SMART checklist, so model can go through that checklist before creating every task and have a clearly defined spec for every task that it needs to do. And yeah, how to handle backlog, how to handle to-do, how to write tasks, call out everything that could be a potential blocker, ping the board, it means us with Metro, and state deliverables, and so on. So like you go into very specific details to defining the processes. It's like handling an overgrown baby, really. Like you have to be very specific what to say, and because it will follow everything you say, and there is not much room for going like away from the defined objective, because it can just drift too much away from the initial task. And yeah, the result, like we have the commits, as you can see, like very like nothing wrong here. You can see like it has a concise description of what have happened. Like you have documentation, you have new features for training, you have features for evaluation, you have mentions of different tasks at the issue board that it tried to solve, and like yeah, like nothing wrong with it. Like looks like it worked. Yeah, it felt like the wow signal, really, like you've captured the, some kind of alien signal. You are looking at the right picture. That was the state of the repository at the end of second iteration. Like you can see, like very beautiful folder structure, like many different commits. It clearly did the work. And yeah, like we felt great that actually we would see some kind of result and automated that Ukrainian NLP get. But when you look at the data, you can see that overall it created only 6 examples, called it a robust baseline, and yeah, and it was for extractive summarization, so for completely different tasks, different ones that we actually asked the first time, and yeah, for every repeated request, basically it told there is nothing wrong with that. It's basically perfect. Like you can just push it to prod straight away. Like it was very confident. And it's not even that we like somehow were short on budget. We used GPT 5.3 high version. It actually spent a lot of compute on the task and produced 6 synthetically generated tasks. It even didn't download any kind of sources, like no human data involved whatsoever. So yeah, third iteration, we decided to escalate it a little bit. And for the hardware side, we used two 3090s 24 gig GPUs. We had an old computer with an old Xeon processor, but with very large core count and 128 gig of DDR3 RAM. See what happens when you have a RAM shortage. And basically, what we did for the third iteration is we provided feedback for the process, so for us to improve the process and to start training models. And due to that improvements to the process that we asked specifically to produce like a real contribution, it was a big mistake that escalated quickly through whole of the project. I will show it on the next slides. Even at the end, like GPT family of models is very sensitive to this work. If you ask it to produce a real work, it will become unbearable in the future. And here, like you can see the updated document. It like we didn't touch it manually, so we asked the model to actually update the way it should be. So it put all of the requirements that we asked to satisfy, like no synthesized data unless asked specifically. Also, data should be loaded really. Some approaches to how to handle the data sets and what to use for metrics, because as for metrics, it just hard-coded the baselines and coded the measurable robust result. So this time we asked to use actually the like real metrics, if you can say so, and it should produce like a small baseline, and benchmark results should be stored in the repository, and yeah, basically that's it. And also produce a good baseline, because initial baseline was just keyword based, and which is doesn't have any use in real world. And like I like very much that model addition. Done means done. I don't know what kind of horrors have happened in the training data for that model, but it's very anxious about readiness of the result if user asks specifically. So it produces a paragraph for what is required for result to be like done. The files exist in the canonical repo. Like, it's very funny to read the LLM text. Push to main, tests are passing, and it's all committed into the Git repository. And yeah, if something happens, then engineer, like data engineer, is triggered to actually fix that process. And how much that little phrase "show only real progress" poisoned the whole data set. Like I ran the search for the repository, and you can see on the left, if you just ask word real, you have nearly 100 matches for that word alone. And for honest, it's like 43. And it escalates even for like downstream tasks. As for experiment, like I have a very fun hobby. When I do presentations, I ask ChatGPT to make same presentation that I'm trying to do. And every time the result is very cringy, in my opinion. And that's a presentation that ChatGPT produces. Like it's a, you can see the headline, speed without truth is fake progress. And basically, whole team of the presentation was catchphrases like that that resolved around honesty. That clearly bothered the model very much overall. And yeah, I plan to add like the Steve Jobs picture with the ChatGPT logo on, but it's much better in imagination, so it's an exercise for the reader. And yeah, last but not the least, regarding the updates to like how we work, is we removed the principal investigator role and used the Claude Code directly instead. So basically, the Claude Code, we use Claude Code instance to create all of the tasks for different roles automatically. So basically, we have a Claude Code that is pushing around ChatGPT agents to do all of the work. And surprisingly, it worked better. But the whole process looks like this. Basically, we were doing that project for maybe more than a month, and it felt like you were constantly, like, instead of the call, putting tokens into that furnace, and it just completely burns, and like whatever orchestrator is doing, it's not relevant to the success of the project. It was very fun, but very addicting activity. Like it consumed very much time. So if we are talking about the goal to have a hands-off approach, it failed miserably in that regard, because you have to constantly add new tasks or verify what actually happened before, or in to double check the work because it hallucinated something. Yeah, that's the problem that I was just talking about, that it constantly requires supervision. Like you wouldn't have a very much hands-off approach. And yeah, like the frequent failure motive was that it was blocked on the question it didn't ask. So for example, there is a ticket which it tries to parse through some kind of source. And when it parsed the source, it escalated to human, that it needs human supervision. And you kind of read that 2000 character text, and there is no ask from the model, and you're basically just telling, please continue. It continues and finishes the task. And it felt like Monty Python movie, but instead we are working with matrix multiplication here, so it's double funny. And yeah, like another challenge that we've had is after using the setup for 2 weeks, code Max account was banned with no appeal. If you're interested, like Anthropic doesn't have a human support agent. It's all outsourced to AI, and AI didn't reply to our request. So maybe we needed to ask Copilot, but still it didn't work. And yeah, you kind of like banned for life, and you are not given any reason at all, like what's happened, that we've just violated some of the terms of conditions, but we haven't had that problem with Codex, for example, during all of the work on this project. And even more funnier, we continued with second code account. and it worked fine. So that was a very expensive false positive, I guess. Yeah. So going into the end, as you can see, it produced a lot of commits, like nearly 200 commits overall with the solution. Very impressive kind of work. Like I worked on Ukrainian text-to-speech model for a couple of years, and it was maybe like 150 commits overall. And you can see like all of the work that agents have done during that month. And if you look into the repository, like you can actually see maybe something was even delivered. And in terms of the data sets, this time it used the real data sets, so like Excel sum. It's kind of a cheating because it's an existing data set, so there is no novelty in here. It's basically the data set that we are using for Ukrainian LLM leaderboard. So it has a lot of labeled news from BBC, but it has a bias of having the first sentences as a summary for the text of model. If it's learning on the data, it very quickly starts to cheat, just showing the first sentence, because first sentence is always a summary using that data set. Second one is refinements. I think everybody is familiar with that outlet. So it has a similar structure, and it's also kind of cheating because there was a paper presented at UNLP, I think 2023, which contained a data set with romantic news articles and first sentence extracted. So it's kind of not a novel work in terms of what we hope to be produced in this case. And the third one, actually, kind of novel idea. It used abstracts from KPI diplomas. So it's kind of like academic summaries of the text to extract the most like concise parts of the diploma. So I guess it would be really useful for all of the diploma supervisors out here who wants to be familiar with the work of their subordinates. And it's fairly small data set, but it adds additional domain besides news, and it was actually novel, so we just use that. And in terms of the model training, like we've trained basically two different models from different architectures. First one is encoder decoder from MT5, and for decoder only we took one. We trained a LoRa adapter to test like how it will work, and we would return to that in the evaluation slide. And one problem that agent discarded and fixed by itself is that for the default Rouge score, it contained it used only English characters for that initial regular expression. And when it failed to produce meaningful measurements, it started the bug, actually found that issue, which is, like a good benefit, but we expected a little bit more out of the company of agents. And for evaluation, in other tests, we measured across Rouge, Bleu, CHRF, and BERT score. You can see for different data sets, there are different results overall, but still there are known limitations with the text reference metrics, which we would not be diving today. And we've used LLM as a judge. So we've completely automated all of the pipelines. So even for final validation, we decided to extract from the frontier models. And we've used through Code CLI and through Codex CLI, Code Opus and ChatGPT respectively. And we use the same prompt for all judges for this calibration. The prompt looks like this. So to produce a JSON with different criteria, which are important for the summarization, we hope to extract basically distill knowledge from frontier models into summarization to avoid manual labeling, and basically describe what we expected out of the summarization in here. So different scores, what is appropriate for different level of scoring, like how relevant it is, what is the coverage for important details, faithfulness, and fluency. And it had to provide all of the explanation into the benchmark results so we can more easily debug it. And since evaluating with commercial models is costly, and we were nearly out of our limits for both Codex and especially Code. It was during the troubles with the compute. So we've used a calibrated Qwen 3.6, 35 billion quantized model, and calibrated the judge to see how it reflects the frontier score. And generally, it has a consensus, so we can easily use the local LLM to actually measure kind of like quality for the same kind of quality as frontier models use. But when at the end of the project, like when everything has finished, there we decided to actually look at details of what is happening. So to not defeat the purpose of the experiment, in our opinion, it completed like a hands-off approach, trained a lot of models. We saw all of the progress, like went all the way through the demo. And as you can see on the screen, this is a very relevant example of what kind of summaries agent has found. So basically, all of the summarization could be an extractive task, and it just extracts the first sentence and that's it. So it doesn't even remove the first sentence, as for example was done in Hromadske paper, and it even like read that paper, so produced the spec previously, but still hasn't applied this. And as a result, overall, this model like doesn't make sense, because if you train that model, it will extract the first sentence every time, and basically very stress the bachelor student before the session, and like it has no real use in real life, unfortunately. So to sum up, like what are the conclusions out of this project could be? Like first of all, I think we are still early overall in terms of model readiness, model harnesses, like how do we orchestrate the agents, how do we prompt the models overall. It's a very important part of the work, and I think we are still early. This technology is not there yet, in my opinion. Still, it produced some results. So, like you can see it, it's kind of like a research pipeline. But this way you're thinking, is it due to our bullying, or is it genuinely a capability of the overall system? So, how does our inputs and expectations manages the system? Like we have to provide a lot of intrinsic knowledge, how to do the research and set up all the process, and it requires like too much supervision overall. Even if the goal is clear and basically the ready result is like 2 search queries away, like go into original paper for let's say Excel sum and just repeat that pipeline unless you ask the model specifically. This would not happen. It constantly tries to like reinvent the wheel from scratch, and that's it. So in terms of addressing the gap, it has some use, but still like no complete solution that we can just plainly scale tomorrow. And for like the next steps, it's very actually interesting questions because we are thinking about how we can further improve the project. First of all, like other agentic harnesses, maybe try, for example, Hermes agent, which recently added a Kanban board. Maybe using the prompting harness, it would have much better results, and we don't have to go through all that company route, for example. Maybe even developing custom harnesses would help. It's closely related to the point number 3, because like when we tackled the project, it was more like it replaces boring work, but as a colleague, so kind of like expecting to work it in agile way, but maybe it's needed to use a waterfall for managing the type of project, to produce a spec beforehand and then go through that spec and have a guardrails at each step to ensure that actually each step is measurably done and achievable. And maybe it will be better, but it's something to explore. And honestly, local models, it's an ultimate goal for that kind of research, because having account bank is not a pleasant experience, because a lot of stuff contained in there, and especially for arbitrary reasons, because you don't know like what kind of rule you actually breaking, if there is a rule at all. And like in our first tests, when models are very good for general agentic style of tasks, especially 3.6 family of models, both 27 billion dense model and 35 billion one, they are very good for agentic type of task, and even for Ukrainian language processing. But it has our compute budget, unfortunately, so we would fit ultimately smaller models or have access to some kind of cluster where we can actually like do all of the research, just schedule the jobs, and then the model would be like sitting somewhere in the server room on our local GPUs. And that would be it. Thanks for your attention, and would be glad to answer any question.
Thank you for this fascinating keynote. And we have two questions. Okay, so does the ways of work document contains make no mistakes in the end?
No comment. But seriously, no. It just contains a plain spec. Maybe it's a good idea to have make no mistakes, but in my opinion, currently GPT 5.5 recently migrated is too anxious, especially last week, if you can say so about matrix multiplication. But it just tries to follow your prompt exactly. And I think that if we had make no mistakes, it would make results even worse because currently it just I don't know, can't relax, but it's an incorrect term for matrix multiplication.
May I then add my comment before the questions? So when Herbert Simons and others, they created this artificial intelligence and machine learning, they actually had a vision that we will have a system, we give a problem to the system, it thinks a long time and give a solution. And now we have a system that we need to say, make no mistake, do it better, do the best work, or I will give your subscription to Claude. And somehow it works. So it's not what we wanted to have. Okay, another question. Do you think that removing CEO will improve performance of real company?
Depending on the goal, I guess. Like there are different kinds of CEOs, so like you can't generalize. But yeah, I share that some people are paid too much and even have job at all. So no, I remember actually the book. It was Hands on Machine Learning from Aurélien Giron, and it kind of stuck in my mind that when explaining the dropout, Aurélien Giron explained it like it's like randomly dropping 30% of employees from your company and seeing what happened. And then Dodge came, and like we see what happened. I don't think that it would really be like the best approach to remove CEOs, but it's really dependent on the people and follow the culture and other things. So,
okay. Do you track the number of tokens spent on task to approximately infer the price if on API?
Yes, it's tracked, but I don't remember the exact number. I think there were. I think it crossed. Okay, I don't remember the number exactly, but
okay.
Something like maybe billion tokens, something like that. It was through the whole month.
Okay, so this was a comment. It's great that we have GPU anxiety.
Okay.
Is there any evolution log for the company to learn on its own mistakes, or for CEO to fire agents if they fail, for them to fear?
That's a very interesting idea. I think we gonna fire paperclip here and see what would happen. Basically, changing our contractor if we are talking in company terms.
Okay. Did you try spec kit or open spec flows?
No, it should be on actually this slide to try different agent methodologies. I think there were recently agent harnesses about how to handle long horizon planning tasks, but it's stuff to explore for this summer period.
Is current LLM training fundamentally wrong for them to work properly, think like humans? any prompt optimization work seems locally good, but globally useless.
Like the goal is not to think like humans, more like solve problems here, like no model thinks like humans and doesn't share like biological similarity overall. I think that problems that we had here just reflect the training objectives that we had, and it's not necessarily aligned with getting stuff done, but more with, in my opinion, increasing the usage of the product. So it produces a lot of tokens unnecessarily for really simple tasks. And maybe with local models, we can actually close the gap and have models that are really interested in like solving problem with a minimum compute budget. I think just goals are not aligned.
Okay. Did it produce any meaningful unit tests? I mean, or at least use any provided unit tests?
Yes, it used it. It runs unit tests as besides benchmarks. So every time there is new code produced, it runs unit tests. Like we haven't checked them, so we are not sure what's happening there. We were interested just in final result. Introducing unit tests helped at some time because model frequently like rewrote implementations and things were breaking frequently, and then it improved the speed. But we had a slide about speed with very motivation training with GPT, and it's kind of right in this case.
Okay, another question. We have two last. Because the model behind our APIs are changed a lot, did you also notice that 1 week the setup can work well and 1 week is a stupid clanker?
Yes, and also depending on time of the day, like especially it was with quote, like if you launch something overnight, it became unreliable at all. And that day it was like more bearable. And for in some final weeks, when we were running the setup, like it was very hard to actually use any kind of model. So that's why we have the local models here, because even if you know that it's less capable, you know what to expect tomorrow, and you can actually build around that, but not like you expect Einstein in a data center, and then it's like the stupidest turtle that ever lived on planet Earth. So like it's so very hard to manage.
And last, have you used generative critic patterns to prove checking the work done by agents with constant criticism and questions for each agent specialist?
Yes, we have a role for that. It's a stakeholder review role, which has a prompt to check that it's usable, could be used in commercial way in real industries, and you see what the real did to the overall solution. And actually, if when you set up the process, like to ask to assign the task every time to reviewer, it just doesn't follow it because it wants to really just complete it. And for majority of tasks, it became unused. So maybe different hardness would help. You kind of hard code that, like for example, when you move from to do in progress and done, you have different workflows triggered for that. Maybe it would help, but yeah, it's a start with start.
Let's try not the same model for critic another models, because if you use same model as worker and critic, this model have same bias and maybe think in the same way. But if you use two separate models with different pre-train, different SFT and REL, it be more reliable results.
Yeah, I agree with you, but unfortunately, we got back. And he didn't want to test anthropic stations even more. So we used the same model for BFIC and for the development. But the problem is deeper that it hasn't even reached the critic at all. Because you don't have without hooks to reassign the tasks using the flow. The agent that implemented the task just didn't assign to the critic and just put it into done and that's it. So life hack for everyone.
But validation is no validation.
Yeah, and it has it in definition of done, so it just doesn't use it on again. So problems are even deeper with and even with other withholding the whole kind of like modeling consents, with how you calibrate the critic, like what kind